Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joe's Classic Video Games back with another really cool arcade game repair video for you today. Today we are working on... Wait, let me rephrase that. For about the next 2 weeks, we are working on Midway's Spy Hunter. Now, this particular Spy Hunter we bought... What do you think, Joe? A year or two ago?
Yep.
A year or two ago, I'm being told from the back. And it's been sitting around in storage, and we finally brought it in. Now, as you can see, it needs some help. The sign is actually missing on the top. Our local operator here in South Carolina was Collins Coin and Video. And from time to time, we get arcade games where they have replaced the marquee with a custom marquee of their own company. Now, I think what was going on was, I don't think they replaced all of them. I think they just replaced the ones that broke. So maybe somehow somebody broke that marquee or whatever. Well, anyway, they replaced it with a silk screened marquee that they had made with their own name on it. We get those all the time. So that's kind of cool. But we'll have to take that off and replace it with the original one. So that's one thing. As you can see, the T-molding's gone off the cabinet, but that's fine because we were going to put new T-molding anyway. There's a little rust on the yoke here. It kind of needs some paint. It looks like it's coming apart here, which hopefully everything's in there. The bezel actually looks really good. It's a little faded, but that's all right. So the bezel's not bad. Of course, all this needs cleaned and painted. The front's in pretty good shape, needs cleaned and painted. Coin door's in pretty good shape, needs cleaned and painted. The artwork isn't too bad. These had a really weird process. I'm not an expert on how artwork's created, but they had somehow the art was silk screened or something right onto the cabinet. And then the center part of the artwork, it's all one piece. That's not a separate piece, but it's done with a different process that's kind of got that stipulated thing. Stipulated, what do they call it? Let me see if I can find a good... Let's look at her hair and you can see it a little bit. The way it was done, it's like printed. It's not silk screened. So offset printing, is that what they call that? See the little pattern to get the gradations? They can do that with silk screen, but I don't think they did on this particular one. So I don't know how they did that, but it's got like two different ways that the art was printed. Well, all of the complicated stuff is fine, but some of this white on the edges is a little rough. You can see too, originally, like that's a color actually. I don't know why they did it like that. I'm sure it had something to do with the way it was silk screened, but so the art needs some work. So we will be doing that. And then this side, kind of got the same thing going on. The middle part's fine. Got some problems on the more plain part. Down here on the bottom, the striping and everything's fine on that side, and pretty much fine on this side. So they make reproductions of this where you can replace the whole thing, but it's, first of all, it's real expensive, and then second of all, when you're done, you've got a reproduction on it. So we'd rather just save the original, less expensive, and it's original. So unless it's all screwed up. Now, if a big piece of this was missing, we'd have to replace at least that part. So we'll see what we have to do. But we're going to work through this one. It's completely not working right now. We're going to work through it and get it back to its former glory. This is a heck of a game, so it'll be fun to bring it back. So the first thing I'm going to do is spin it around, and we'll take the back door off and see what's inside of it. Okay, folks, so we popped the back door off. I'm going to show you what the inside of a Spy Hunter looks like. This was one of the most complex games back in the day, so there's a lot going on. So I'll show you the deal. This is actually a pretty clean one. So this is kind of how it would have looked new. So we'll go through it a little bit. Power comes in from the wall into this, they call it a suitcase. So it's a big transformer that creates a couple of voltages, and then the couple filter caps. This is also a little cap. It's an oil-filled canister, which is kind of like a start capacitor on a motor. They have something similar to that. Okay, so the voltages from the suitcase go up to this power supply, which is the Bally MCR2 power supply. I mean MCR3 power supply, I'm sorry. The MCR2 games were games like Tron, and some of the older ones like that. Kickman might have been an MCR2, or it may have actually been an MCR1, but by this, I think this was 1983, and by this time they were on to MCR3, which was like Disc of Tron, Spy Hunter, etc., etc. Now, the power supply may be the same for MCR2 and MCR3. It looks the same to me, so there may be minor differences, but it looks the same to me. A lot of times the problem that you'll have with these, and we're going to go through all these boards here in a little bit, is this battery here will start leaking. And if it starts leaking, you'll get corrosion all over the place. You don't actually need that battery. It's for saving high scores and stuff like that, and bookkeeping and stuff. So if that battery's gone, usually the board will still boot. But if you've got corrosion all around through here, your board will not boot. This one looks really clean, so that's cool. And we'll end up putting a new battery in it. Okay, so the power comes from there over to the main board stack. So you've got 3 boards, and we'll look at those too. There's an in-out board, which is also the sound board. So I think it's SSIO, the SSIO board, Super Sound In-Out or something like that, which is this front board. And then there's a CPU board and a video board. I don't know which order they are. So that's what actually makes the game and makes the graphics on the screen. So the video from that comes out and runs up to the monitor. Now this monitor is a Wells Garner K7000, you can just tell by looking at it, which is actually a very good monitor, but I don't think it's the original one. If you look, there's a couple little brackets that are missing from the sides here. I'm pretty sure that this was originally a 4900. So it would have been a Wells Garner 4900 originally. But usually the monitors are kind of interchangeable as long as they fit in the game, which has more to do with the frame. And as you can see, they changed this one a little bit so that this newer style monitor could fit in it. But that's actually a very good monitor, so once we rebuild it, it'll look great. So the video goes up to the monitor and is displayed. You've also got a bunch of AC that comes from down here that runs up to, like, for instance, the light up at the top. Okay, and then you have other various boards that work with it. So you've got this over here, absolute position PC, which I believe, I've never had to mess with that. I believe that has something to do with the steering though, which you would assume based on the name. I might be wrong about that. You've also got over here this sound amplifier. It says a dual power amp with mixer MCR3. That amplifies the sound. And then you've also got this one, which it says lamp driver PC. This runs the actual lights on the bezel. There's little lights that, and on the I don't know if it runs the one on the start button, but it runs the little lamps on the bezel that light up whenever you've got your oil slick and things like that. And then also over here on the side you have the Cheap Squeak Deluxe. That's what it's actually called. You can see right there on the board, Cheap Squeak Deluxe. This little board is the one that makes the Peter Gunn theme that it plays while the car's driving. Very, very cool. So this board, that's its only purpose, is to make that background sound. So the game will run without that board in it, but it's not very fun, right? I mean, that's one of the best parts of the game. Down here you can see the pedal. The back of it has a little potentiometer on it. And then of course there's stuff on the back of the steering column. But the very first thing we're going to do, if you've watched some of our videos before, is we're going to see if the power is right coming out of this block down here. Now it may be that we have to replace some of these capacitors because these things do go bad and they cause problems on these MCR games, so we may have to replace those, but we may be able to get it up and running even with the original old ones. So the first thing I'm going to go do is I'm going to check for some voltages in the manual and write them down, see what kind of stuff we're supposed to have, and then we'll check that first and see where we are. All right, folks, so we have unplugged the monitor, just in case it's got a short on it or something screwed up. We don't want to mess with the monitor right now. And we've unplugged the game board, because we don't want to fry the game board if the power is giving it crazy power. And then just to be safe, we even unplugged the power running to the power supply, so you can't get any weird voltages going anywhere. So all we're trying to do is check to see if the voltages coming out of this power brick are fine. And so the way that it does it, I'll try to get this all rigged up here for you, is that these two connectors come out of the power brick and go into the bottom of the power supply. So there's a 2-pin connector, and then there's a 9-pin connector. And so if you look on the schematics, this 2-pin connector sends a 12 volt unregulated to the power supply. So we need 12 volts unregulated, right? Not regulated. So let's check and see what we got. And I can't remember, this one may be actually AC. Yeah, this one's AC. So the 12 volt one is AC. And we're getting 14 volts. Oh, I guess it would help if you could see. We're getting 14 volts AC. So it's unregulated, which means it's not perfect, so it's a little high. But that's good. You're just trying to see if the voltage is missing or if it's ridiculously high. Okay, and then on the 9-pin connector, it seems to all be DC. All of these ones with the white stripe are commons, so they're actually the grounds. All right. So we've got a whole bunch of that going on. You see 4 of them, 5 of them. So really the only voltages that you've got are this red wire and these 2 black wires. So we're going to put our ground on one of the red grounds, I suppose. And then we'll check the red wire, which is supposed to be 15 volts unregulated. So it's way up at 20 volts unregulated. But it's unregulated, so that's all right, right? And then we'll jump over and we'll check the black lines, which are supposed to be 8 volts. And they're 8.64, which is very good. And then the other one is 8.64, so we're good. So the power coming out of this power brick is fine, at least as long as nothing's plugged in. That may change after we plug stuff in, but so we know that our power is good or good enough coming out of here and then running into the power supply. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to unplug the power from the power supply, the output of the power supply, and plug in the, of course turn the machine off, plug in the power on the bottom, and then we're going to test the power coming out of the power supply and see if our power now is good up and through the power supply. So we'll try that next and see where it gets us. Alright, so this was a little bit trickier. So we've got these 2 connectors up here. I believe this is connector 4 and this is connector 5. I may have that backwards, but I think that's right. Let me see. No. This is 4 and this is 5, I believe. We'll figure out here in a second. But basically that's how it sends out its power through these 2 big huge plugs. So we've got it all set up here, and we're going to check our voltages if we can get these plugs out of the way. Alright, and there is a little tiny 1 right there that indicates that this is pin number 1, and I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, I believe. So we're going to see. I may be wrong about all of this, and I have written down all of the voltages that we're supposed to have. So on connector number 4, our ground is pins 8, 9, and 10. So it would be 3, 6, 7, 8, 9. So this should be a ground if I'm correct. I can keep this is all while the game's on, so I'm trying not to short anything together and blow anything up. Again, I've got the board unplugged and I've got the power coming out of the power supply unplugged. Alright, so I think that's our ground. Pin 1 would be the battery voltage. Let's see if we get anything. 5.55 on the battery voltage, which that seems pretty high. Now you wouldn't think that the battery would still be working, but maybe it is still working. All right, pin 3 should be 5 volts. 5.61. Now on your 5, it's going to be a little high because you don't have any load on it, so nothing's really connected to it. You can also adjust it with these little pots over here, which I guess we could do to make sure nobody freaks out. So you can see I got 5.61. One of these pots is the 5 and one of them is the 12. Okay, that's the 5 there. So you can see you can adjust it down, but you can't get it. Oh, well, I guess we can get it all the way down. We'll put it a little high. We'll put it at like 5.15 because I think that'll drop once the board's actually plugged in. All right, so the 5 volt is there. Pins 5 and 6 should also have 5 volts. Yep. And yep. Okay. And pin 7 is the coin door bulb, ground. Pin 8 is ground, pin 9 is ground, pin 10 is ground, pin 11 is 12 volts for the coin door bulbs, which I believe is that one there. Close enough. Pin 12 is 12 volts as well. 11.63. That's another one. It doesn't have to be exact, but you've got this pot here. See, you might as well turn it up, right? All right. And then pin 13 is the reset line. So the reset line is this one. This is a very strange deal here. I'm going to guess it's not even working. But the reset line, whenever the game comes on, it works different on different ones. This one, I believe it's supposed to start out low and then go high. But it could be that it's supposed to start out high and go low. It's a thing where it holds the board from completely booting up until the power stabilizes. So it either goes high or it goes low, depending on how it's designed. I'm not sure how this one's designed, but we're going to check here in a minute. So when it first comes on, it should be 1 voltage, and then it should switch to the other voltage. Right now we're at 0, which I'm going to guess that that thing's not doing anything. So we're going to turn the game off, and we're going to turn it back on and see what the voltage does. Yeah, the voltage did nothing. So basically that line is probably supposed to go high. I'll look into that before we mess with it. But you need that voltage to tell the board to reset, or the board won't come up in the mode that they want it to come up in, basically. So sometimes some of the boards will run fine without it. Some of the boards have to have it. It depends on the design of the board. I don't know if Spy Hunter has to have it or not, but we're going to try to get it to work. And there's a couple chips here that are what actually create that reset line. So our reset may be a problem. I'm going to put a question. I'm going to circle that one so that we know to look at the reset line. All right. And then we're going to jump over to this connector. I think I'm just going to leave my ground right where it is, since it's in there so well. Let me make sure this isn't. That's pin 15. I'm getting 5 volts. I wonder if I've been counting these off the entire time. Let me get a light so I can check those pins real close, just to make sure that we've been counting them right. All right, folks, good news. I had it written down wrong. Pin 15 is the reset. I could have swore it said 13 in the manual, but if you look at the reset line is always purple, and if you look at the plug, the purple plug is pin 15. The one in the top corner that we're on right now. See how we have 5 volts? So we'll turn it off and see what it does. Now it should come up as 0 and then go to 15. I mean go to 5. So we'll see whenever we turn it on. Straight to 5. We'll keep our eye on that, folks. Who knows? All right, but we'll leave our circle and our question mark around the reset line. Now we're going to jump over to the other one. Again, I'm going to leave my ground right where it is. Pin 1 should be 5 unregulated. Ooh, and we're up at like 8. Good thing it's unregulated. 2 should be 5. Yep. 3 should be ground. 4 should be 5. Yep. 5 is ground. 7 is ground. 8 is ground. 9 is 12. Yep. And then 10 is the common for the coin meter. So it looks like all of our power is good, but our reset line may be messed up. But the money's the jury's still out on that one. So I think we've got good power. So I think the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it back off, and then I'm going to turn on the monitor, plug in the monitor and turn it on and see if we get any problems with the monitor. I'm going to leave this unplugged for now. So I'm just going to see if what the monitor's doing, if it's even trying to boot up, or if it's blowing fuses, or what's up with it. We're just trying to, you know, safely walk through it where we don't fry anything. Okay, so we've plugged the monitor back up. We've still got the board unplugged for now. We're going to pull out the interlock switch to turn the monitor on. We'll see if it does anything. Sounds good, like it came up. One way you can tell for sure if a monitor is on is you can see if it's got net flow. So not sure if you can see that, but there's an orange glow coming from the neck of the monitor. So you know that the heater's working on the monitor. It must be on. Now, you can also turn up the brightness a little bit, and it'll give you a brightness on the front. We'll see if we got anything. Yeah. See how it's too red because it's up too high. I mean, there's retrace lines because it's up too high, but it's all red too, so that may be the tube's messed up, or the board's messed up, or the green and the blue's just turned down or something. But what we know is that the monitor is actually up and running. So you know what time it is now. Now we're going to plug in the power supply, plug in the board, and hit the button and see what happens. See if the thing comes on. Okay, folks, we plug the power supply back in, and then we carefully plug the board back in, right? Now remember, we turned the 5-volt down, and I was saying that it's going to go down once we plug the board in, probably. These boards are power hogs, so I'm sure it's dropped. So what I'm going to do is we're going to try it, and then we've got to kind of test the power with the board plugged in. Now a good place to test it is, I don't know how well you can see it. Let me see if I can shine a flashlight in there. Good way to test it on an MCR game is, if you see on this front board, there's like a little cap over here in the corner. That cap has 5 volts on one side and ground on the other side. So you can check what kind of power is getting to the board by just checking the power on each side of that big cap. So that's what we're going to do. So let's pull it out. You can hear how you hear a little more sound now, because we're actually getting voltage running to the power amplifier. And I can't do this too well without the tripod. Let me put you on the tripod real quick. Okay, so you folks can watch the voltage while I check on the cap. 4.6. Okay, so I'm very carefully going to lean over and turn the voltage up. 4.66. 4.81. 4.92. 4.92, and that's about all we got. So we're probably losing some voltage at some of the connectors. Let me try over on the actual game board. I mean the power supply. 5.1 on the power supply. So we're losing like 0.2 volts between the power supply and over to the board. Right. So we're going to turn it off. Now that we know we've got our voltage right. Right. And then we're going to turn it back on and see if the game is booting up. So now it's getting 5 volts like it wants, or close enough. We're kind of working. I don't know why that title is jumping around. See how everything's jumping? The sprites are jumping a little bit. And see how we're getting a ripple through the screen? Do you hear what I hear though? You hear it? It's trying to come back to life, people. Now notice just the sprites are jumping, like the text isn't, the background isn't. See, the truck is, the cars are, that little title thing was. So that's an interesting one. All right, so the first thing, you saw how I turned up the power almost all the way and it wouldn't go up all the way to 5, even though it was on a power supply, but it wouldn't on the thing. So what I'm going to do is, I think I'll order the capacitors for it. See the line that's going through the screen? That's a filter problem. You hear the buzz and the sound. That's a filter problem too. So I'm going to order those capacitors that go in the suitcase in the bottom, and go ahead and replace those, and see if we can get the power a little bit more stable. And maybe, well, the sprites are doing pretty good right now. And see if we can get the power a little more filtered and stable, and see if it won't at least get rid of that hum bar that we've got on the screen, and maybe the humming in the speakers too. But you got to, you got to start with clean power first. So we'll do that first, and then we'll see where we go from there.
That's all for now. Join us next week, folks, as we try to determine, does this baby hunt? Leave your comments below. Make sure to give us a thumbs up. And we hope you've enjoyed the video.